Hi, my name is Jaden Richardson, and I decided to do my presentation on the inner workings of the adolescent brain. So, looking at adolescence, I think it's super interesting to see how critical of a stage of development this time is, where the brain is undergoing super rapid and profound changes, shaping who we are and setting the stage for adulthood. During these years, we see dramatic growth in cognitive abilities, emotional regulation, and social behaviors. It's a period of exploration, learning, and honestly, some challenges too. So, for my focus of the presentation, I wanted to look into the super intricate workings of the adolescent brain. Obviously, that's my presentation topic, but I think it's super cool looking into the research that I found, including insights from the adolescent brain cognitive development or the ABCD study. I also wanted to look into how the brain develops over time and to see what patterns emerge as adolescents grow. I also wanted to take a closer look at the role of social media and how that plays in shaping younger brains. I think social media has most definitely become a more central part of adolescent life in today's teens, as opposed to how other generations grew up. I think it's super cool seeing that the different opportunities that are presented for kids today, not only for connection and learning, but I think it also for sure presents some vulnerabilities that we may overlook initially. I wanted to talk about how these young brains adapt to the digital landscape and what's helpful, harmful, and some stuff that we're still trying to learn as technology progresses. So hopefully by the end of the presentation, you guys have a little bit of a deeper understanding, or even appreciation for the dynamic stage of life and the factors influencing it from biology, technology, and everything else. So going into the overview of the adolescent brain, I think one of the most interesting things I found was how fast the adolescent brain the adolescent brain grows. So the brain goes through two different key processes during this stage, which is called growth and pruning. So with growth, adolescence is a period of like super crazy neural expansion. So new connections are being formed in your brain with which help strengthen cognitive abilities, improve emotional regulation, and build the foundation for adult thinking. At the same time as this is happening, there's also something going on called pruning. This is where the brain eliminates weaker or unused connections, pretty much fine-tuning its neural pathways. So kind of like cleaning up your workspace or cleaning up your room to get rid of the things that you don't really need so that you can focus on the stuff that you need in there. Um, so when we talk about the different brain regions that are most affected during this time, the prefrontal cortex stands out the most. This part of our brain is responsible for things like decision making, planning, and impulsive control. So pretty much all the important stuff. But there is a little bit of a hiccup with this. The prefrontal cortex is also the last region to fully mature. So that lag kind of explains why adolescents kind of behave the way that they do, um, because this part of the brain is still developing. So teens are kind of more likely to make impulse decisions without fully thinking about the consequences. So while adolescence is often seen as a time of risk and sometimes questionable choices, it's important to remember that the part of the brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do during this time. It's most definitely learning, adapting, and building different foundations for the future. Understanding these processes for sure helps us appreciate why teens think and act the way they do, and it also reminds us how critical this period is for brain development. So looking at the limbic system, it's also another key player in the adolescent brain, and one of the reasons why teens often feel like they're on an emotional roller coaster. The limbic system is part of the brain responsible for handling emotions, processing rewards, and what I think is more interesting, it develops earlier than the prefrontal cortex, which is the brain center for decision making, planning, and impulse control, like I mentioned before. Because the limbic system is kind of ahead of the rest of the brain, which is more so the prefrontal cortex, it kind of creates an imbalance in the brain. It means that adolescents often experience heightened emotional responses and have a strong drive for rewards, whether that's scoring a winning goal or doing well on a test or even something risky just for the thrill of it. This developmental imbalance has some noticeable effects for sure. For ones, teens do tend to be much more sensitive to both rewards and risks compared to adults. This heightened sensitivity can lead to more risk-taking behaviors and a greater desire for new and exciting experiences. At the same time, their emotional responses can be pretty intense because the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which is kind of like our brakes, kind of letting us know that we're not really doing the right thing, or maybe we should think about it, because our prefrontal cortex isn't really fully developed. Um, it's still taking a minute to catch up on whether we should be doing these risky things or not. Um, I know it might sound a little bit bad, but it's not really that bad. While it can lead sometimes to impulsive decisions, it's also a period of incredible growth and learning. Teens are for sure exploring, pushing boundaries, and figuring out who they are. Understanding this dynamic helps us better support them through this critical phase of development. Moving into the ABCD study, one of the most exciting and in-depth studies, in my opinion, of the adolescent brain is the ABCD study. Um, and this is like one of the longest, or yeah, longest, biggest long-term research projects in the US. It's being led by the National Institute of Mental Health, or the NIMH. My apologies. So what's pretty cool about this is that it's tracking the development of over 11,000 children as they grow from adolescence into early adulthood. The goal of the study is to better understand the brain development, or how the brain develops during these crucial years, but what kind of sets it apart from other studies, excuse me, sorry, what kind of sets it apart from other studies is that it focuses on a wide variety of factors that influence the brain development. It's not just focused on the brain itself, but it's also looking at things like genetics, lifestyle, environment, and even behavior. The researchers are using brain imaging, genetic data, and detailed information about social media and emotional development to paint a full picture of what's going on during adolescence. Um, so by collecting this kind of data, the ABCD study, I'm gonna click the next slide. The ABCD study aims to give us a much deeper understanding of the factors that shape adolescent growth. It helps us to see how everything from our genes to our experiences can influence how the brain develops, which could lead to new insights about mental health, education, and some more things. For the key findings, I wanted to look at one of the major areas of the study focuses on is the effect of substance use. So this is like alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and how that affects brain development. And what they're finding is that substances at a young age have serious impacts on cognitive functions and brain development, which can shape how teens think, learn, and make life decisions as they get older. Another important area of research is sleep patterns. It turns out that sleep is absolutely critical for brain health during adolescence. The ABCD study has shown that how much sleep teens get and the quality of sleep are directly linked to how well they do cognitively and how stable their emotions are. So, getting enough good sleep isn't just about feeling rested, it's for sure crucial for mental and emotional well being. The study also looks into the impact of social factors on brain development, and this for sure is another big not issue, but another big focus area. So things like family dynamics, peer relationship, and even social media can all have a big influence on how the adolescent brain grows and how it functions. Understanding how these factors interact with the brain development um, and how it can better support teens during these important years. So, through all these findings, it for sure emphasizes just how important it is to keep an eye on mental health during adolescence. I think by recognizing the early signs of health issues, the ABCD study is for sure hoping to help inform interventions that can promote healthier, more positive developmental paths. This long term data is invaluable because it gives us real insights to how early life experiences, whether positive or negative, can shape brain development and mental health down the road. So, looking at how social media impacts adolescents, so, research shows that they're especially vulnerable to its effects. Adolescents are still in the middle of crucial brain development, particularly in areas like prefrontal cortex and the limbic system, again, which are responsible for things like decision making, emotional regulation, and social processing. Again, because these areas are still under development. So teens are a little bit more sensitive to external validation and even sorry, and even social feedback, which makes them more susceptible to pressures of social media. Um, Looking at how social media may take advantage of these kinds of vulnerabilities is through the constant search for peer validation. So looking at like when you think about how social media platforms are set up, everything is designed for engagement, whether it's through likes, comments, or even shares. For adolescents, this can for sure lead to a lot of comparison with peers, which can kind of create feelings of in like belittlement or like low self-esteem, which when they don't get like the validation that they're hoping for. There's also a dopamine-driven feedback loop. So every time someone gets a like or positive comment on social media, their brain can release dopamine, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter that's associated with pleasure and reward. So this could give them a sense of satisfaction, and the more they get, the more they crave it. So they could go back and forth more constantly checking their phones for the next dopamine hit. And over time, this cycle can reinforce the habit of checking social media frequently and making it harder to disconnect and have healthy boundaries with yourself. So ultimately, the constant need for validation and dopamine-driven nature of like social media for sure has a big impact on adolescents' mental health, self-esteem, and even overall well-being. So looking at some more potential risks that come with social media use, especially for teens, one of the biggest concerns is the impact on mental health. The constant search for online validation, getting likes, comments, and shares can really ramp up the feelings of anxiety and depression. So adolescents may feel a lot of pressure to present a perfect idealized version of themselves online, which honestly isn't all that realistic. When things don't go as planned, maybe they don't get as much likes as they want or comments, or someone leaves a negative comment, it can really take a toll on their mental health. And on top of that, these negative interactions like cyberbullying can for sure make these mental health issues even worse. Another major risk is the effect of social media and how it can have, or the effects of social media. Um, Sorry, let me repeat that. Another major risk is the effect social media can have on self-image. Adolescents are constantly exposed to curated portrayals of other people in their lives. So these pictures may be heavily edited or idealized, or honestly just the highlight of this person's life. Can really distort how other teens may see themselves because they may feel that their like self-presentation isn't at the same level with this person's. So then they start to compare their real lives to these people's highlighted reels of their life that they're posting. And this can lead to body dissatisfaction, unhealthy body image, and a drop in self-worth. It's for sure easy to see how this can create a pressure to fit into a certain mold, especially in these formative years. So understanding how social media affects the adolescent brain is for sure crucial. It's not just about limiting screen time, it's for sure about developing strategies and interventions to promote healthier online behaviors. I think we need to figure out how to help teens navigate the digital world in a way that kind of minimizes these risks, which is honestly hard. It's such a vast web of interactions. It's kind of difficult to see how we can limit that down, especially when we are not with them 24/7 to monitor what they're looking at or what people are saying. But I think finding out a way that we can help better support their mental and emotional well-being, whether that be online or in person, I think it's for sure crucial to look into. Going into some, oops, no, excuse me, let me go back. Okay. Going into some real world interactions, excuse me. Um, During adolescence are so social interactions during like adolescence, teen years are for sure a big factor in shaping both cognitive and emotional development. This is a time when teens are really learning how to navigate the world around them. And a big part of that comes from the relationship with peers, family, and even mentors. So these connections they pick up are essential to life skills like empathy, communication, and even problem solving. These social experiences aren't just about building relationships, they're also here to help shape the brain, and especially the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible again for decision making and higher order thinking. So the more positive social interactions teens have, the better their cognitive and emotional growth. But there is another thing, while teens are learning these important skills, their brain is also going some like crazy changes. One of the most notable aspects of this is their increased tendency to take risks. And again, this is because of the reward system. Like feelings of like pleasure, motivation are super active. The limbic system, again, which handles emotion, um, and rewards, um, again, matures earlier than the prefrontal cortex, and it creates that imbalance that we were talking about earlier. So this can be a good thing as it pushes them to try some more new things and explore the world, but it also means that that drive for reward can lead to them to make impulsive or risky decisions. So it's for sure a balancing act, like I stated before. Um, During this time, teens are for sure wired to seek out the experiences, but their brain isn't fully equipped yet to think through the consequences. Understanding this imbalance again can help understand why adolescents sometimes do both of amazing things and also some risky, questionable behaviors. So for my personal interests, I think in healthcare, which is my desired work field in the future. In healthcare, I think understanding the the psychological and physiological changes that happen during adolescence is for sure essential. This is a crucial time in a person's life as they're going through both physical and emotional growth. So knowing what's going on in the body and mind can help healthcare providers give like a better care. Um, so physically, adolescence is a time of huge change. Everything from hormonal shifts and growth spurts, again, to the brain development. Being aware of these changes means that healthcare providers can offer advice and treatment that's specifically tailored to the needs of teens. So for example, that could be what works for an adult patient may not be appropriate for a teen, because their bodies and brains are still developing. So I think understanding those physical changes is key to making sure um, the care that you're giving is age appropriate. Um, but not just on this physical side of things, there are also psychological factors to consider. Things like peer pressure, the impact of social media, the stress of school, family dynamics are all a huge part of an adolescent's life. Healthcare providers need to take all of these factors into account when treating teens because it's not just about physical health, it's also about emotional and social health too. So I think the best healthcare interventions to look at for both the positive and negative influences on teens. Excuse me. I think the best healthcare interventions look at both positive and negative effects, influences that teens are facing. So I think for an example, supportive relationships with family and friends, as well as access to educational opportunities are huge positives that can help teens grow. On the flip side, I think challenges like substance abuse, mental health issues, or pressures of social media can for sure complicate things, but it is also not the end. I think considering both sides, healthcare professionals can help create an environment that supports healthy development and ensures overall well-being. So I think when healthcare providers have a full understanding of both the physiological changes and the psychological factors that impact adolescents, they can provide better care that truly supports a teen's growth and not just their physical health. So going into why I think this is an important topic, as adolescence is such a crucial period of the brain development, excuse me. It's a time when significant changes are happening, both cognitively and emotionally. It's also when teens are figuring out their social identities, and it's for sure an important time for intervention, excuse me. Um, I think the cool thing about adolescence is that it sure offers a unique window of opportunity to guide and support teens in a way that can really shape their future, even if they don't think it will. If we can intervene early, we can help steer them toward a positive development and address potential issues before they become bigger problems later on. One of the most impactful areas where early intervention can make a huge difference is for sure in mental health. By understanding how adolescent brains develops, we can spot early signs of mental struggles like anxiety, depression, or even substance abuse. The earlier we identify these issues, the better we can provide support, whether it's through counseling, education, or other resources. The great thing about this is that the effective interventions designed specifically for the development stage of adolescence can help reduce the severity of these conditions. When mental health is supported, it's not only there to improve well overall well-being, excuse me, but also sets teens up for a healthier, more positive trajectory in life. Another big area where understanding adolescent development is crucial is with social media. We know that social media has a huge impact on the adolescent brain, and it's not always a positive one, unfortunately. But with the right knowledge, we can help guide policies that help mitigate the risks while still allowing teens to use social media in healthy ways. These policies can maybe focus on educating teens, parents, and even educators about the impacts of social media and how it can affect teens' mental health and give them practical tools for healthy use. I think there's also room for kind of collaboration here, whether that be with educators or parents, um, and even maybe tech companies. I know that might be a little bit of a stretch. I think that could all play a role in making the online world safer, in a number of ways for not just teens, but also children and adults. By working together, we can create guidelines that not only protect teens, but support their mental and social development as they navigate these kinds of spaces. Um, I think overall, the goal is to just help them use social media in a way that kind of enhances their lives rather than give them a place to compare themselves or, give them some more stress. Um, I think it'd be a lot better to help them use social media in a more positive way rather than give them some more mental health challenges. And this was my presentation. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you all have a great fall break.